You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. Good afternoon and welcome to episode number 62 of the Last Breath Huntcast. Sorry it's not the morning. Garrett and I learned a valuable lesson yesterday called how long it takes to break down and process, vacuum seal, and grind a full bull elk. So that took a lot longer than we thought. So our original plan was to record it when he got back on Sunday, but we did butcher the rest of his deer yesterday, but we just did not have enough time. Elk. Yeah, I keep saying deer. It's weird to say elk. We butchered an elk yesterday, and boy, was that son of a bitch big. And we just didn't have enough time to record this podcast yesterday. So we're coming at you today. It's Monday after work, and so hopefully this gets out to you guys internet contingent at a really good time. But Garrett's the guest today. It's episode number 62. Remember that every single Monday you can listen to a brand new episode of the Last Breath Huntcast on iTunes, Libsyn, or Spotify, or you can watch it on YouTube. We're pushing that back to the following day. So thank you for everybody. Want to get this out before we get into it. That's press the play key on YouTube. Over the last few days, we've seen a lot of really good growth on our YouTube channel. So thanks for all you guys for watching our adventures. We're really excited to show you guys the Last Breath Lives as whitetail season comes down the pipe. This elk hunt that we have in the bank, which you guys will be able to watch on Wednesday, 2 days from now, which is going to be awesome. And then all the stuff that we're doing. We have a huge project that we're doing with the Whitetail Legacy podcast coming out in November that we're really excited about, as well as all the Throwback Thursday episodes that we're launching, all the new episodes we are launching on Saturdays, all the image autopsy that is left, which we have 5 episodes of Moultrie's image autopsy left on our channel on Sundays. And we have got a really cool project, like I said, with the Whitetail Legacy guys coming down the pipe for their vacation. So the topic of our day today of this podcast is Garrett's trip of a lifetime. His first elk hunt ever. Killed a beautiful bull. And my first question for you is, it's going to be mostly you talking on this one. And you're just going to tell us a story. So take us back to the beginning when you guys loaded up the truck, pointed it westward, and press the gas pedal. So the floor is yours, and then I have 4 or 5 questions for you here before we wrap it up. Go for it.
Well, hello, everybody out there listening. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be a phenomenal podcast, and we'll start it from the beginning when we packed. So the night before we left, we all met at Chris's house and completely packed the truck. Literally everything, guns, bow, camo, coolers, everything but like literally the essentials. And the reason being is because we woke up at about 3:45 on the following morning when we left, and Chris pretty much left from his house, picked me up, picked Jeff up, and we were on the road. So it took about 22 hours to get out there.
Was that broken up by any hotel time or any rest?
Yeah, we had to. We didn't have to, I should say. But we stopped in Cheyenne. No, on the way out there, we stopped in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And that's about 15 hours away. And that's about as far as we really wanted to push it driving one day. You know, if you think about it, from 4 a.m. to 4 a.m. is 12, and then you add a couple hours to it. So we got really into the hotel around that 7:30 mark because you got to add some time for stopping and fueling.
Yep.
And that was about perfect because we were all beat. We were ready to get out of the truck and just stretch out. We brought the guns inside and pretty much threw all of our other valuable gear in the truck and locked it up. And we went to, it was Old Chicago.
Pizzeria, huh?
I didn't have pizza. I think if I remember this right, I had chicken and biscuits. Chris had salmon. And Jeff had something plain.
An Old Chicago in Wyoming.
Yeah.
That's pretty obscure.
It's a chain. I mean,
I know, but even still.
So that night, I showered. We all showered and went to bed. Woke up early in the morning because we had to be at the meetup spot with our outfitter at noon. And from there is where we parked our truck and then proceeded to go up the hill. So we were about 5 hours away, so we got up at 6. I showered again. Jeff and Chris did not. I'm like, dude, you guys sure? Because It's your last opportunity for running water for a long time.
PNR right here.
So I showered, and they're like, "Oh no, not gonna shower," And I was like, "Okay." So I scrubbed myself real good, and then boom, we hit the road. We got in on time. We stopped about 40 minutes away. Called them to make sure everything was kosher. Any last minute things because I think we were going past a pretty good town where there was a Walmart. We didn't have to stop. And there we met up with kind of like the spike camp lead, if you will. He was kind of the guy that oversaw it. He was a guide too, but he was kind of like the foreman, if you will. You know, you had the other guides, and then his name was Bart.
He was a head guide.
He was the head guide. So there's Bart, and then there's a guy named Alan who was the camp cook. Everybody called him Cookie. And that first day, some guys did go out hunting, but most of the people didn't. I think the guys that went out hunting probably got there early because they were already in camp. So I don't blame them. Like, you know, we could have planned the trip out to where we got there at like 8 o'clock and so on and so forth. But we got in, we got unpacked, we got hauled up by 4-door Can-Ams up to pretty much all the way to spike camp and dropped our gear off, got situated in our tent. Our roommate, which is kind of funny to talk about because the tents held, spike camp was designed for 8 hunters and then 8 guides. So there was 4 tents. Each tent had 4 cots, right? And then Cookie slept in the cook tent, which, whatever, right? And that guy only wore pajamas, by the way, like the entire time. We're in the mountain. Like he wore like the denim, you know, brown denim colored like slipper shoes and literally like pajamas and a t-shirt every day. Even, I shouldn't say that. In the mornings he did wear like a hoodie. But, you know, it's kind of like that old saying, you know, don't trust the cook if he's skinny. This boy wasn't skinny, man. Yeah. He was a big old boy, and he knew how to cook, too. Seriously, probably the best thing, other than the harvest out of this trip, was the food. It was out of this world. And like I said, it probably didn't hurt that we were starving our ass off when we, you know, woke up in the morning when we came back for dinner. But he did a great job. It was all Dutch oven cooking, cast iron Dutch ovens.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to unloading. So we got unloaded in camp, and we kind of had like a quick orientation, what the guides expected of us, what we kind of expected with our guides. We got assigned our personal guides, which was kind of cool. And then we got to, you know, hey, this is me, this is you, what's your experience? How can you shoot? This, that, and the other. We sighted in, or didn't sight in. We double checked the rifles at camp, just at 100 yards. And then I shot my bow out to 70 yards in camp. They had a block target, which it's kind of like a 3D shoot. You know what I mean? Like, because I was the only guy with a bow there. Ding, ding, ding. There's a red flag. Right. You know, so when you start like everybody's watching, I had an audience because everybody already shot the rifles. I went when they shot their rifles, you know, which was kind of good for me because it adds like a little bit of like hidden pressure. You know, you get so comfortable. I get so comfortable shooting by myself in my backyard. Like there's nobody there, just me, the bow, and the targets. And then when you get these random guys, you're like, fuck. And like when you pull one like to the left, like 2 inches or something, you're like, oops.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was good to have them there, but they really kind of questioned my proficiency out there. I think everybody's probably been snake bit by a guy. It's like, oh yeah, I can
drop a dime at 80.
Yeah. Yep. So it was good to get that heat, and we shot broadheads, you know, just to make sure they're flying good. And then that evening, Cookie had made us salmon. So on their way, I don't know how many times they went up and down to get the get stuff at the truck. But it was probably 40 minutes to the tire, if you will. There's a big tractor tire that we parked around. And then from the tire is probably like another 40 minutes easy, maybe a little bit longer down to hard road. So we took 2-track up to the tire, and then from there is like rough as shit 2-track with the side-by-sides.
Yeah.
And so we got into camp. Cookie had made a salmon. It was great. And then me being me, I'm like, I want to know who the hell my roommate is, you know? His name, I don't ever got his last name. His name was Paul. He's from South Dakota. And you wouldn't have never guessed it. Like, seriously, the most humble, simple man ever. But this guy had to be loaded. I mean, loaded. This guy, he's like every little time he'd say something, I'd pick up a little bit more and pick up a little bit more. And I was like, Paul, what do you do for a living, if you mind me asking? He's like, I deal with insurance. And I don't know yet if that is a lie or not, but it's just incredible. So the sequence events, we'd all go out hunting, and then every night we'd come back and we'd crawl in our little sleeping bags, which were freezing, by the way. Like it was like 30, 35 degrees at night, sleeping on a steel spring cot with a sleeping bag. But you were so damn tired you fell right asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd make Paul tell us hunting stories because this guy has hunted everywhere. He's 50 years old, and he's killed like 3 different species of sheep. He's killed a tahr. He's killed a mountain goat. He killed, this was his 16th bull that he killed. 16th bull elk that he's killed. He shot, he said, Jesus. 2 whitetails over 200 inches, 3 mule deer over 200 inches. He's killed Marco Polo sheep. He's killed ibex. And he's like, yeah, every fall, me and my best friend, and the reason his best friend didn't come, because we had 7 in camp, his best friend would have been 8, but he got the Rona, so he couldn't come.
Jeez.
And he's like, I don't even know how he got it, but he's like, he's fine. He just tested positive. He couldn't come. But he's like, me and my best friend usually take like a 30 to 40 day hunting trip every fall. I'm like, 30 to 40 days. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, before this, I shot like a 186-inch mule deer in Colorado. And then I came up here to hunt elk. And then from here, I'm going to Wyoming. And then after Wyoming to kill antelope, he's like, me and him are going up to Canada to hunt moose for 2 weeks. I'm like, holy crap, man. So like I said, the thing every night is like
ask a new story.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. And the dude was chocked full of them. It kind of was really, it was cool. Like one day I hope to have like that diverse amount of stories. We have tons of stories already just hunting around here.
Whitetails and turkeys, but
man, like when he was talking, so I'm putting Paul on a pedestal here, and I don't know if he'll listen to this or not. And I don't even know
what was the coolest story that he told you?
So the one story that stuck out to me was his doll sheep, right? So we talk about, if you listen to my elk trip preparation podcast, we talked about the rifle that I had put together. So Paul, we asked about all the guns and the scopes and this, that, and the other, and he had a Christensen Arms 300 Win Mag with a Night Force scope on top. And it was a very, 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 very nice gun. And it was a stainless steel barrel. I'm like, how come you didn't go to carbon fiber? And he's like, well, I'll tell you about that. And so he proceeded to talk to me about his doll sheep hunt, where he had a Christensen Arms carbon fiber gun. And he's like, the hunt was amazing. He killed one, but he's like, the way that it worked, he's like, he was like, you think this is rough? And he's like, try hunting sheep or mountain goats, man. He's like, right. There's not a flat spot to sleep, and you literally live on your back, But so they were on the mountain, and they had found some goats, and they were trying to relocate them. So him and his guide would like set their packs down, and he'd set his gun down, pretty much de-weight, and then they'd go off like on 2 little knobs, like, hey, I'm going to go over here east to like this crest, and you go over there, like, okay, good deal. And like an hour we'll meet up, or if I come to you, then I've found one that we need to go after. So they split up, and they'd done this for several times, and he's like, we split up again. I'm sitting here glassing, and I hear him coming up, and I'm like, I'm excited, right? He goes, I'm thinking that he's got a big ram's found. He's like, hey, he's like, dude, I don't know how to tell you this, but I was coming back because I'd forgot something, like, I don't know, remember what he was doing, but he's like, I bumped your rifle and it rolled down the mountain. And he's like, no, man. He's like, chuckling it off. He's like, stop fucking with me. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I don't even know where it is. We have to go find it. So they went back and found it, and his rifle had bounced down this mountain like 250 yards. And he said it took him for like an hour to find it. And he's like, the barrel was cracked, but it's a stainless steel tube inside of it, right? The barrel was cracked. The stock was broken in 3 places. And he goes, my Night Force scope was just crumpled to shit. He's like, I didn't even know if it would fire. You know what I mean? He's like, I couldn't believe it. And he said, so we set rocks out at like 100 yards because I knew my dope, and he's like, the gun was way off. He's like, it was like 18 inches off to the left and like 6 inches down, something like that. And he's like, I had to take my Leatherman pliers that were in my bag, my multi-tool, to turn the turrets to adjust them.
That's how mangled it was.
That's how mangled they were. He's like, the glass in the Night Force though never broke. And he's like, it held 0. He's like, I couldn't get it all the way to the right, so I knew my gun was hitting like 3 inches left at 100. And he's like, there's no physical way like I could dial it in if I had to do like a 500-yard shot. I just had to do holdover. but he ended up killing a ram with that crumpled up gun. And he's like, that kind of sold me on these. And he's like, ever since then, he's like, carbon fiber is lighter, but it's definitely not as strong. He's like, if that barrel would have bounced the wrong way, he's like, who knows? He's like, I could have had a little bit of Kentucky windage on all of my shots. So he's like, ever since then, he's like, I've insured my high dollar expensive hunting gear, like my gun, my optics, my glass, all that stuff. I just insure it all. And he goes, and I pick hunting rifles that are good, but I also want them to be really pretty robust, especially for those scenarios. So that was kind of a neat story that we heard.
That's really cool.
This guy's killed axes here in Hawaii. So get a load of this next year. We're like, what do you got booked next year? He's like, I got another elk hunt. He's like, I just love hunting elk. And he's like, but the big one is, he's like, I'm going to Russia with my friend to hunt grizzly bears over there. He's like, the cool thing about Russia, he's like, it's actually cheaper than hunting them stateside. And he's like, and you get to kill 2. I was like, oh, cool. I'm just like, man,
Holy crap.
what a dude. The biggest thing that he said is like, he's like, I spent a lot of money on hunting, and he's like, it is my true and utter passion. But he's like, here's my biggest advice. I used to be one of those guys who's like, man, I wish I would. I wish I can. He's like, finally, I just did it. And he's like, me and my best friend that he goes on all these hunts with, he's like, we write down 5 species, and then we whittle it down, and we book like 3 years out. And he said that gives us time to prepare for the expense of it, which this guy, I don't think he really cared about the expense.
Right.
But he's just like, you just do it. And he's like, dude, I've been all over, hunted all kinds of stuff. And he's like, it's been a hoot. So it is kind of like an eye-opening experience just to meet Paul in itself. Like, the takeaway message is like, just
do it.
Yeah. And he even said too, he's like, man, I didn't start out like doing like, $60,000 doll sheep hunts. He's like, because I told him about our Western experiences with antelope and some mule deer and some other things. He's like, I started out just like you guys. But he's like, you just got to, if you make it a priority and you do it every year and you go with somebody or a couple guys that are going to go with you no matter what, he's like, then it's like you go. You have to go. You can't be the guy that doesn't go that year.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. So, wow. That's Paul. Paul, if you're out there, thank you for sharing all the stories every night. Moving on to the first day. So the first day, Greenhorn Garrett to elk hunting decided it would be a great idea to bow hunt. My guide was a great guy. His name was Zach. But the interesting fact about Zach is that he was not a bow hunter. Made it a little bit different that first day. He knew enough to, like, I think, put me in some spots where I needed to be. But we spent that first whole day over a wallow, and we didn't see an elk. We didn't hear an elk. And I get why he put us there, but I think the last week when we went, it was all but over. The entire trip, I only heard one bugle. I never even saw the elk bugle, but I just heard one, which is cool in itself. But everything that I've heard, especially talking to like Shane from Sandy Hills, is like, man, when they're on fire, they're just popping off. Like
turkey season a little bit.
So it became very evident that right away, sitting in the bottoms over wallows would probably be a big waste of my time. And I kind of, not that I felt claustrophobic, but I'm like, man, I drove 22 hours to like deer hunt. It felt like I was just sitting there waiting. I didn't even have I had my calls, but I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, do I cow call? Do I bugle? Do I not? I mean, and I come back to camp that night, and guys are like, oh yeah, we're up on these big rocky ridges, or like these big pine ridges where we're glassing down, and we seen elk, like they were like 1,000 yards away, but we got to see them. Like, fuck, I want to do that. I don't want to sit in a damn bottom where I got like 100 yards worth of view.
Yeah. Like you said, whitetail, sitting and waiting.
And I think my guide felt a little bit bad, because he's like, hey man, he's like, we can go back out and do it. He's like, we'll just get in a better spot or something. I'm like, no. I'm like, we just got to free up a rifle, because I didn't have a rifle. Jeff was using my rifle.
Yeah.
And Chris was using his, and Dingus bat me and was, man, got my bow.
Right.
So it's really hard it's like turkeys. How do you hunt them when they're not talking?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I went with Chris that next day, and the guides, we had no cell service unless we were on the very tippy peaks. And that was when I'd give you updates to my wife, like, hey, still alive, no bulls, blah, blah, blah. And that next day we were with Chris, and the guides all had radios. They had a big like booster in their backpack. So they said that the radio range in the mountains was like around 10 miles, which was plenty for us.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody would kill out, or if somebody, had their opportunity and blew it, the guides would still go out and glass on these big knobs or peaks, which you've seen some of like my pan shots with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we were sitting there. It was Chris and me and our two guides, and we're just glassing and glassing and glassing. And then finally somebody came on the radio. It was like, hey, and Chris's guide, his name was Woody. He's like, Woody, he's like, where are you at right now? And they had all these places like named, like the Repeater and Jackpot, and couldn't tell you which one was which.
Mm-hmm.
But just like how we have, like, everybody names parts of their properties.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, where are you at? And he told him, he's like, hey, so you're not very far. He's like, you're one ridge over. He's like, I got a couple elk that are working down the drainage. He's like, if you guys can get over here right away, I'm going to keep my eye on them. So we packed down, and it was like fucking go time then. Because when you're hiking out there, I mean, it's hard work, but you can kind of go at your pace when you're getting glassing points.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris was fucking dying. I had my pack and tripod, his pack. He carried his rifle at one time, and like, we're fucking pushing right through bush. There, no trails, like, and Woody's going just like straight lining this shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like the aspens were probably 10 feet tall, and then when we get to the pines was the best because it wasn't a lot of thick brushes. When actually you're out like on the open parts, that it was the worst walking. I'm not sure what the brush there was, but it was probably about stomach high, and it was really woody stemmed. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't push through it like grass or any of the other stuff or like sagebrush, out on the plains.
Yeah.
This stuff was like tough. So you had to like step over it. It'd be like trying to walk through like
a little mini hedge bush.
Yeah, shrubs, So we're pushing and pushing and pushing. We took a quick little break, and we finally get up over to where the other guy was. He's like, they're right over here. He's like, we need to probably work another half mile down this ridge and see if we can find him. And then we're going to shoot from, across the canyon to kill him. So we get into position, and we're on the sunny side of like a pretty grassy, rocky, short bench, if you will. And the two guides peek up and over, and they're glassing, and we're just staying behind. Luckily I had the camera in my hand, because I would have been too antsy and been like, oh, I'm gonna help. Mm-hmm. Filming, and boom, they found him. So the cows were bedded off in the timber, and there were some cows out in the open, and there was the three bulls that were with them. And so we go down the mountain probably another 150 yards to where we can get a good shot. We had to work away from them, but still it gave us a clear line of sight. Chris gets his pack up, and literally he's like shooting at the apex of the crest of this bench that we're on. Mm-hmm. So he crawled up, and he set his bag down, and he took his Badlands bino harness and stuck it under his rifle as 2 points of rest. Range it, re-range it. Chris takes a dry fire, and it's just over 400 yards. And the elk are still bedded down, so we didn't want to shoot them when they were bedded down.
Yeah.
And the small one got up, and we're like, oh man, they're gonna get up.
Here they go.
Yeah. So he gets up, and he moves, and he lays back down. So he proceeded to lay there for like another 90 minutes. And at this time, none of us are really paying attention. Mm-hmm. Chris is on the gun, but he's not really on the gun. And I'm like got the camera like periscoped. I'm behind the hill.
You're over the ridge shooting.
Yeah, but the camera's over it. And then the one guide is sitting next to like a small brushy type of aspen. Like it wasn't a big bushy one. It was or a tall one. It was more like a bushy one. And then my guide was down with me, and the other guide he'd peeled off. He's like, you guys are got him. I'm going to go keep looking. So there's the four of us still sitting there. And then all of a sudden Chris is like, they're all up. And we don't know what happened. But of course, then it was like, holy shit mode, because all the elk are on their feet.
Yep.
And he didn't have a clear shot at first because they were all lined up. And the guy's like, don't shoot. Chris is shooting a .338 Lapua. So probably strong possibility that would go through an elk. Like you have to make sure there's nothing behind it.
Right. Yeah.
And finally the big one clears, and Chris is like, all right, you ready? Yep, ready. Yep. And the one thing we did not do is check our wind. Again, novices to long distance shooting. We had like a 15 to 18 mile an hour crosswind across canyon, and Chris touches it off, and I just see the vapor go, and it slaps, and the elk like
eats it.
It's like a chair. His legs just all going, like he didn't crumple up underneath him, but so think what happened is that Chris knocked him out because Chris hit him in the neck. And I'm like, I watched the elk dirt nap. I'm like, you dumped his ass, that's my thing, I guess, when somebody shoots something. I did it with Jesse. And the guy's like, shut up. And because the elk didn't know what had happened.
Right.
Like the two bulls, the cows were already working away, and the two bulls are like, George, get up, man. Because I'm assuming, they didn't know where the shot came from or what.
Uh-huh.
Then he gets back up. The elk gets back up, and now because Chris got off the gun, when he thumped him the first time.
Right.
Like he didn't stay in it. He didn't have a new shell in the chamber or bullet in the chamber. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh crap, puts another one in. And the elk's got like jelly legs, right? He probably just got knocked out, like literally knocked out. And gets up and he starts kind of like stumbling, and Chris takes another shot, misses him. And now they're running, or trotting. The other two are gone. And this guy's like working his way down the hill, and he goes into the pines, and all we can see is like a patch of fern. I'm like, Chris, can you just get another one in him? I'm like, just shoot, dry fire. Like he short worked the action. You hear click, and he's like, fuck, what the hell's going on? I'm like, breathe. The guide's like coaching him, like work the action. So he all the way in, gets it in, and then you can tell where he is, and you can see the top of his back. And I'm like, Chris, just shoot through the tops of the pines. Just shoot through. You got to get more in him, I hate that kind of mentality, but we're like,
right.
We already have hit him. Mm-hmm. We just got to get more holes in this thing at this point, right? Like, it's bad as it sounds, we're now trying to recover a less than ideal shot. So he shoots, and you just see like the tops of the pine trees just like, whew, and you hear it hit, and the bull drops. And he just threaded the needle perfectly, hit him right in the front of the shoulder, and boom, he went down.
Damn.
So that was like crazy. And then the guys were like, get on the gun, because you can still see that the other animals, like they're down in the valley now. They're just running because it,
Yeah, because they don't know what's going on.
So I'm like, I don't never shot Chris's gun. I get on it, and like I'm tracking another bull, which he wasn't near as big as Chris's, but beggars can't be choosers, right? And it just didn't. I'm like, dude, I'm not rushing this. Like, this is a far shot. I've never shot this gun. Like, I get it. And the guide was trying to cow call to get him stopped, but 3 shots in the air, man, you're not stopping them,
Right, yeah.
And they just finally run into the dark timber, and we never saw them again. So it's cool though, because I did get to like scope up on an elk, and man, when you're bellied up, it's rock solid.
Yeah.
We shoot whitetails here with like 1 point of rest out of our blinds that we make, on the window. But when you're on your belly and you got 2 points of rest, I mean, it's just like a lead sled.
Yeah.
Even tracking him, because I could just watch him, but still, I'm like, I'm not shooting if he's not stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And either way, cloud 9, right?
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Oh, yeah.
Guides radios in to get to horses coming. And then we got to like work our way down and around, and we're taking path of least resistance now. They kind of get a idea of where the bull is on the hillside, mark some stuff, and boom, march around. And we get up to them, and dude, they're huge. I did not realize how big elk are. You think like a big deer, like, oh man.
Yeah, 300-pound whitetail, big freaking whitetail.
You literally can't like pick his head up, because like a whitetail, you're like, oh, swing his head around, turn it more. No. So we get over there, and he died in like that thick brush stuff that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, can we drag him to get him in better pictures? And they're like, yeah, no. I'm like, and they're like, no, dude, you could try to move him, but you're not gonna move this thing.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the joke the whole trip. Like, they were laughing, like, hey, you want to take better picture? You want to move him? And I tried being stubborn. Nope, no chance in hell that you can move these. Like it was a workout for the 3 and 4 of us to like push him up and get his legs under him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I took the outdoor edge. We've got the saw, the quick zip, I think is what it's called, lip and zip.
Something like that.
And cut a lot of the brush down just around him. And we got a couple of really nice pictures. And then the way that they did it there was really interesting. I was expecting like the quarter out, throw it on the pack.
Like the gutless method kind of deal?
They didn't do gutless. They gutted him. They 100% gutted him. So laid him on his side and split him open and removed the insides. And boy, everything is supersized. It's exactly like a deer. Exactly like a deer.
Yeah, we were noticing that yesterday when we were...
Yeah. But, the lungs, the heart, the liver, I mean,
how big were the lungs compared
huge.
to? Like how?
Huge.
Like compare them to something like a manhole cover, oblong manhole cover in the street.
Oh.
Was it like this long, like your forearm, like tip your middle finger to your to the back?
The heart felt like I was holding a basketball.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I bet you
a basketball?
Like that big, I bet.
Damn, so like a dodgeball. Maybe a little smaller than a basketball?
Yeah. But that's what just reminded me. Yeah, it's not the size of a basketball, but like the the most like the roundness of like a volleyball. And I bet tip to tip it was 11 or 12 inches. Just huge, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So they removed the guts, and then what they did actually is they cut them in half long ways, like hot dog ways, or hamburger, not hot dog.
Yep.
And because they had the horses, or 2 horses and a mule, and they had these pads on them, and so they take the hindquarters and drape it over the horse, and then took like a Hercules strap and pretty much pulled the legs in pretty tight, and we skinned the head and the cape off of the front shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Front shoulders, same thing, and then the head sat upside down on the third horse.
Yep.
And then us and the Wrangler, we just walked them, back, which worked great because we didn't have any weight. We put like the gun and a couple other packs. The other guys threw a couple packs on the mule that carried the horns, but
poor little mule.
Yeah, he got the
he got the easy job.
Yeah, those packs did not weigh the same as what that freaking elk did. I kept mine on because I liked having my Badlands pack on. It's comfy and it's got my water bladder in it.
Yeah.
So like I didn't have to like go hug up to the horse to take a little sip. So that was Chris's hunt. Jeff's, I was not with him when he killed. We split up after that. Chris did try to film me the next day, which we didn't have any elk, didn't see anything within range by a long shot, and he was pretty well spent after that. He's like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm gonna stay at camp today. I'm like, dude, don't worry about it, enjoy it and relax. So it came down to Jeff killed on the second to last day. They were on their way out actually, so we take the side by sides into their property as far as we could, mm-hmm. and then you couldn't, didn't have trails or roads, so we'd all park them. I don't know, we probably rode side by side for like maybe a mile in, which got us in there a good ways. And then we'd hike from there. So we all split up, or we'd, pretty much all park within 200 yards of each other. And Jeff's shot his on his way out. Like they were hiking out to go glass.
Yeah.
And they saw elk.
To like be done for the day.
Like early in the morning. And the guide was like, Jeff, elk. Like put one in the chamber. Jeff put one in the chamber, and they were on the run. He started cow calling right away. And the bull that was with him, which turned out to be a beautiful bull, definitely took the right picture. He's big, but he's not like that whoa big. And Jeff shot him at like 180 yards,
Dang.
Yeah. He didn't freehand him. He put it against a tree, but I mean, standing up, and shot him and just rocked him. They still ran. We didn't stone any of them, the 3 of us. We never like stoned any 3, but Jeff hit him great. Slightly quartering away, middle of the lung, like exit was, right
behind the shoulder.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So that we actually heard the shot. We didn't know who it was, but we kept going because it's getting down to like short change time,
right, yeah.
So the guy's like, hey man, your buddy shot one. Like, I don't know if it's down yet or not, but he's like, if we turn around and go help him, he's like, we're pretty much spent for the day. So we kept hunting and nothing. And then that morning, which we saw moose that night, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
So we saw a cow and her calf, and the calf, you could actually hear them talking to each other. And that was a weird thing too. The guides told me that when Chris had killed, he was like, dude, you can't talk at all. He's like, these canyons, the sound travels like across open water. I didn't believe it until like those calves, that calf and that cow, moose cow, they were like 400 yards away, and you could hear them very easily when they would like make their calls and noises. And he's like, I told you, man. He's like, it carries across these canyons like across open water. He's like, you got to be super quiet. Side note. So last day of the trip, really just didn't, it was, the morning was pretty unproductive. It got really windy, and Did not think it was going to happen. I was like, man, this has been awesome. Saw some beautiful country, saw elk, heard an elk bugle.
Right.
And it was like an hour till like sunset. So there's probably like 90 minutes left of light. I had a time lapse set up that I was shooting back at me and the guy that we were glassing. And all of a sudden his radio comes on. He's like, hey, he's like, where are you guys at? And he's like, oh, over on the repeater. He's like, you guys have to hustle now. He's like, we just caught a bull pushing cows into this bottom. So we like whirlwind pack up and just take off. And I mean, he's like, dude, he's like, we got to go. He's like, I know you can go. He's like, we're hoofing it, you know? And it was probably 2 miles. And I don't know. We just went as far and as fast as we could. We'd stop, take a breath, suck water, and went again. And finally we got in and like we could see the guide that was, he was coming towards us. Get around to the bench on the side of the hill, get set up and get bellied up. And he's like, if they come out, they're going to come out and they're going to be like, 300 to 500 yards away, and they're going to be coming down out of this bottom. And we're sitting there watching, and then all of a sudden it's like snap. You could feel the cold. When the sun would go down, it immediately turns the thermostat down. I mean, immediately. It's pretty crazy. Because like I said, in the mornings it was 30 to 35, and in the evenings, but during the day it was mid-60s, really comfortable. But boy, when that sun would set, you could immediately start feeling your thermals just pulling right down.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then at that point, the guy's like, hey, elk down in the bottom. Get my range, boom, is about 400, so I set my dial to 400. I didn't do any windage because it was getting pretty calm. And I'm bellied up, and I'm watching, and then he's like, bull in the back. Bull. He's like, shoot the bull in the back, waiting, and he comes out, and all I seen was like his tops, which he had like a little split on that. I'm like, woo! Turned my magnification up, and he cow calls, the bull stopped, turns, looks at me, and I send it. Just, and I stayed in my scope. It hit perfect. The bull doesn't move. Like, I saw dust fly off his back.
Which
like,
most times when you hit a whitetail perfect, it's
mule
just drop.
Kick or
just drop.
Or drop, yeah. But so he was slightly quartering to me, and the picture that's going around that's the first onside shot that I took. And I mean, it just, poof, hit him. And I saw the dust come off, and he's like, hit him great. Well, at this time, I'm already like, I'm shooting till they drop. I choo. Another one in the chamber. He turns around to head back into the timber. Boof, send another one. And that one hits perfect. Like, the bullets, if they would have been shot at the same time, would have almost crossed each other's path. My entrance and exits for each one were like 3 inches away. Proud shooter moment, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck. He didn't have his ears plugged. He's like, I told you hit him good, And then finally he goes down. And so there is like, it happened so fast.
Right. Yeah.
It was just like a whirlwind of emotion. We go down there and we get him. He had to hike up and get the horses coming.
Yeah.
But he's freaking stud hammer of a bull. We had like 20 minutes to get pictures taken, and he was like, hey man, because I was the last breath guy in me is, I want to take all kinds of cool pictures and this, that, and the other, and trying to ask the guide to hold his horns and do this. And he's like, hey man, he's like, we don't have much light. And he's like, it's not fun working with headlamps. He's like, we got to get to moving, So we took a couple pictures. I wish we would have been able to take more. It's not like you can leave these things out overnight.
Right, yeah.
And then we went to work. So took it back to camp and quartered him up that night. Or not quartered him, deboned him. I let the hindquarters sit overnight just because they're always easier to work with.
So they set up a little bit.
They set up. But the front shoulders, I popped the front shoulders off. And I took the back straps and the rib meat and all that other stuff.
How long was the back strap? Like from tip to tip? The full thing when you reeled it out of there?
Because they were cut in half. Like we literally cut right through the back strap when we split them in half, from the back half and the front half. But I don't know. Like the sections were probably each 24 inches long. I mean, huge. You got to see them. I mean, they were massive.
I just got to see the third sections in your Ziploc bag. Right. Though. I'm talking like end to end. Were they like
4 feet?
4 feet?
Or yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I know that when that roast, I was like, yesterday when we were cutting it up, Garrett had, as he typically does, he organized all the meat, and this round roast, we call it the football roast of the whitetail. A football roast on a whitetail is probably about 3-4 pounds on big buck. And this one, we weighed it in our butcher shop. That sucker weighed like 11.3 pounds. It was like 3 or 4 times bigger than a big buck's roast.
Yeah.
And when we plopped it down on the table, it's like a roast that's like literally almost a foot thick by like a 1.5 feet long by a foot wide, and it's just like, whoa.
Well, to give
This
people an
thing
idea,
is
like
substantial.
a big beef brisket is like 11 or 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And we had like 4 of those.
Yeah.
Easy. I bet those bigger ones that we have are over that.
That half of neck meat that I was trimming out yesterday that we ground up, whoa. That was so much meat
15
right
pound
there.
slab of meat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, one. Yeah.
So yeah, because the neck roast,
Jeez.
you know, the way that I do is I take the front shoulders off, then I take the back straps out, then I peel the neck off side by side, and each halves, and then you just peel the rib meat and any other trimmings, and then you were done. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So then the morning before we left, I had the shoulders to debone, and then the back half to take care of, which had already taken the straps out of the back half that night before too.
Mm-hmm.
Still wasn't too terribly bad, but yeah, it's way more work, man. I mean, it's a bigger animal.
Yeah. It took us 3 times as long. I was telling Logan that yesterday when we were on the way to Sunday dinner. It was like we started at 11 o'clock. We didn't get done till about 5:30, and we still didn't get it all done.
Nope.
6.5 hours. Usually in 6.5 hours, like right on the button, our first whitetail. Now, 2 whitetails will slow down because we'll get groggy and tired and shitty, but our first whitetail, I feel like we got it down to a science where we can have one bagged and tagged in about an hour 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
90 minutes.
Caped, skinned, deboned, packaged, and the table is clean. But
And
man,
we break it up, you know.
Forever.
Yeah, because we usually
hardly
let 'em
took
hang
a
for
break
day.
yesterday.
Right.
In 6 hours, we were hammering on that sucker, and man,
I know.
there's a lot of freaking meat. So I'm looking forward to trying it. All the like the steaks and stuff that we got off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to like seeing how it tastes compared to a whitetail. That's what I'm most excited for. Also to watch the rest of the footage and show you guys out on Wednesday. So that'll be pretty cool. So I got some questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So first question that I was kind of thinking about as I was thinking about this was like, how did you feel like that your conditioning was relative to the task at hand? So obviously, you know, for a person that's never been out to the mountains before, I've been a few times. Now you've been twice. This has been your second time in about 2 months of going since you went with Shane.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you feel like your cardiovascular condition and all of the training that you did working up to that? Like, is there certain things that you wish you would have done? Like if somebody else was going to go out there and go elk hunting for like a week like you guys did, do you think that you could say, okay, I wish I had done more of this or less of this, or are you pretty happy with the way that you prepared?
I was happy with the way I prepared. I mean, I'm not putting any of the guys at camp down, and I'm not trying to be gluttonous or chauvinistic here. But I mean, I was in far better shape than everybody else out there. And I still, like, me and my guide, you know, and the other guides were probably all in a similar level as far as being able to go and then take a break. The biggest thing that I noticed, because I did get to hunt with Chris, is 2 things. A, how far we can go, and B, how fast you recover. Like when you're pushing up a hill, and they're not hills, like when you got like a 500-yard jog up straight up,
Yeah.
and you're just going to pound it out. You know, the difference between being able to get up there and do it, or if you take a break, like how fast you get your lungs back. My legs were completely fine. My legs never fatigued. I didn't feel like tired with any of the weight on me or nothing. It was all like lungs. And I don't think you can train for that. And that's what the guide said too. Like you can't train for just the lack of oxygen, right? Your body's just used to more of it.
Unless you got one of those, I guess they make those masks now. I've seen a couple of those kind of like floating around the internet or something like that. But
I mean, I the biggest thing I can tell you is that you do have to do a combination of running and lifting to get your legs strong. But I think if it was one or the other, running, hands down, you have to get that cardiovascular system working. I mean, that's going to be your bigger handicap rather than doing like back squats or weighted lunges or something along
those are only going to benefit you after you.
Well, they help because you're walking uphill, you know what I mean? But because you're, you know, if you think about like walking up a hill, it's kind of like doing a lunge every time.
Stair step.
Yeah.
It's like one of those stepper machines.
But boy, I tell you what, getting your lungs built up is the most important factor. 100%. If somebody's thinking about doing it, any type of mountain hunt, I don't care if it's elk to mountain goat. I mean, you got to get your lungs under you. So
Sure. You kind of already touched on this a little bit earlier, but your favorite non-kill related aspect of the trip. So obviously, huge freaking accomplishment, like going out there, killing a huge bull. Well, huge to us. I don't really know how to.
Big
I
enough.
don't really know. Freaking big enough. So, what was your favorite thing, minus obviously being able to bring a bull home of the trip? Your favorite part, was it hanging out with Paul and hearing Paul's stories? Probably?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, that was the other cool thing is I would say that, and then the other neat thing is no phones. Like, people didn't use their phones. The only time people used phones, because there was none, like a no service.
Yep.
The only time somebody used a phone is if they didn't have a headlamp and they were like walking from cook tent back to their regular tent. So every night you had that true nostalgia of hunt camp. Nobody had Wi-Fi. Nobody had phones. Like, you weren't worried about posting a picture of social media or taking pictures of the campfire to put on your Instagram.
Right.
You weren't calling mom or your wife. I mean, every night we just hang out and we were dirty as shit and stinky, and we'd sit around the fire for like an hour and then go to bed. But it was like that was one of the coolest things. Nobody used a phone. Nobody. Ever. Like when we were hiking and on the glassing, you still didn't have service almost all the time.
Right.
So like me or the guide, we never were on our phones ever.
Yeah.
That was a cool thing, man.
Yeah. Especially how tied in you are on a typical day, like with your day job, with having to rely on your phone like for work.
And it's disappointing because when we got back to Hard Road and got service, it was like boom. And it's the nature of all of us. Like Jeff's the project manager, Chris owns a business, and it's like all of a sudden, boom, yeah. And then you're stuck on your phone for the next hour just siphoning through the messages and shit. And it's like polar opposites. You go from up there where you don't even care about it. It's literally useless other than light.
Yeah.
To where you get back to service and now all of a sudden it controls your life,
Right, yeah.
And the headaches and all the problems that come along with that nuance and technology comes with it, because it was like every time we'd get service, my phone would just go nuts. I had it on silent, but pick it up and it'd be a flood of messages and updates and everything. And I love it. I love people that were wanting to see how I'm doing and stuff. I'm not saying that's stupid,
right?
But it just seems like, man, what a true distraction from life,
Yeah.
And it allowed everybody to kind of soak up that whole experience of being there. Our camp was like at 8,200 feet, so it was like just being able to take it all in.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool. Really cool.
All right. That's a good answer. I like that. How about the biggest adjustment of the trip? So something you were suspecting that was going to happen, but maybe didn't happen, or an adjustment that you had to make?
That came really quick, and that was a realization that hunting with my archery equipment was a very stretched reality, given when we were hunting.
Right.
I think, like I said, hunting turkeys, if you go out to a farm, like let's say it's a 800-acre farm or like 1,000-acre farm here for equivalents, huge
farm,
and you don't hear any turkeys. Where do you start?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're hunting with a bow.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the biggest letdown of the trip, and kind of the thing that I was optimistic for, but come to reality terms with it really quick. That time of year where we were hunting, getting it done with a bow would be really hard.
Yeah. Not so necessarily that it can't be done, just the amount of time, just the time constraint, like we've talked about a batillion times.
Yep.
Okay, this is a good one. How are you going to get your elk mounted?
I don't know. He's got a really cool side where he's got a little bit of trashy stuff, like where it kind of balls together. He's got really heavy tops. He's not like stupidly massive throughout, but like where he splits between his fifths and sixths, he's got a lot of good mass. And I think what I'm going to do for A, height constraints, B, it's like my favorite form for whitetails, and C, to really show off that side, I'm going to have him turn left, and I'm going to have him so he's going to turn into the shed and look at kind of like the Bowinkle, the moose.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have him tip his head up a little bit. I'm not going to have him bugle open mouth, but tip his head up a little bit to point his antlers down.
Back, yeah.
So, and then a wall pedestal. So it's going to be like a a pretty emphasized wall pedestal to not where he's looking parallel with the wall. I don't want to turn that hard, but like a little bit more than 45. I want him looking pretty hard into the room with his head kind of
a little bit
up.
steeper than Geronimo's tipped.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But that's what I'm thinking. I want to talk to Wayne and see
what he recommends, what he thinks he can do, make happen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's that kind of wraps up the elk part of the episode, but it's whitetail season now, and today is what? What's today? The 12th?
12th.
Yeah, today is October 12th. So we have a huge cold front coming in the Midwest on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, etc. And it's not going to get over like 60 degrees for like the next 6 or 8 days in Illinois, at least for us in the Midwest. And so that's gonna bring us to our would you rather whitetail question. So I got a bunch of would you rathers based on whitetail questions. Here is the first one. Would you rather have a 2-mile walk in or a river crossing in the dark? Both of them are in the dark. You're
home?
Walking, at home. These are all whitetail related.
River crossing.
I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to elk, so I'm not even going to try.
River, 100%. You're talking to a guy that could sweat in a meat locker, man. You're talking, you walk my happy ass for 2 miles, I'm going to need a change.
So river crossing.
Yeah. Put on garbage bags and get across.
Wade. All right. Would you rather drag a buck 1 mile uphill, no help, that's the caveat, you are doing it all alone, or gut a buck outside in negative 20-degree ambient air temperature? So either way, you've killed a buck, so congratulations, but would you rather drag him 1 mile uphill or gut him outside when it's negative 20 out?
I might, and if I balk on the question, you can go, but I wouldn't drag him. I'd probably like throw him over my shoulders and hike up the fucker.
A buck?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess you're strong enough. There's not very many people that can.
I would gut him first. I would gut him.
So you'd probably be weighing about 210, 220 at the time?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But what if I made you either drag it or gut it? And you can't put him up on your back. I know what I would do.
I'd probably still drag it.
Jesus, why? I would much rather do it in the 20-degree temperature. I think that's one of my
negative 20.
Yeah. I think that's my most nostalgic, like, feeling of deer hunting. I know when, like, we've done a good job, and it's like one of my favorite feelings to gut a deer in the cold just because the insides are so warm. But negative 20 is really freaking cold.
Really cold. I mean, the buck's down. I don't care how hot and stinky I get.
Drag them.
Yeah.
So you're going for
I would rather do that and then have all the time in the world to do my job to keep that animal clean and healthy and, safe for everyone. I don't know.
All right. Me. Fair enough. Number 3, would you rather shoot a buck at 10 yards while he's trotting past during the rut, or take a 35-yard shot on a buck as he's feeding? The caveat to the feeding buck is he's not alert. So,
35 yards all day.
35?
Yeah.
Rather than the 10 chip shot?
Yeah.
No chance for them to jump or drop or anything like that?
I mean, 10 yards, there's a lot of things. He's trotting on first off, so if he doesn't stop, you have to take a moving shot. I mean, and unless
Which we probably wouldn't.
I mean, the 10 yards, I mean, I think you're fair to say you could do that. I think that there's more opportunity for error
at the 10-yard
as a trotting 10-yard than a deer that's feeding broadside. I'm shooting on my time at a distance I'm super comfortable with. Like,
yep.
Yeah. That's just me.
What if I change the distance to 55 yards?
That is a lot tougher, because now that's getting into the point where, like, it becomes shooting foam. Sure, go put the Glendale buck out at 55, right?
Yeah.
But foam and fur are different. I don't know. I think, like, right now in bow shape, I would rather take the rested shot.
With the 55?
You change it to December, where I haven't been shooting my bow every single day and I'm out of quote-unquote bow shape, I'd probably take the 10-yard shot. Because in my mind, a 10-yard shot, a trotting deer, if he doesn't stop, you're going to hit him back. You're not going to hit him forward because he's
moving
just away. It doesn't matter if he's going left to right or right to left. You're still moving. So even if you hold behind the shoulder and you squeeze it off and he doesn't stop, you're probably hitting back along the liver, which is still a completely recoverable deer. Yeah. If it goes out to 55,
early season take the 55,
late season take the 10. It just depends on how
comfortable you are.
Get
circumstantial
out of bow shape. You do.
Yeah. Would you rather shoot 3 does or 1 coyote?
Coyote.
That's an easy question, isn't it? What if I said 10 does?
That just seems reckless. That
How
doesn't.
does
We've
that-
killed that many before in here. I'd shoot 10 does. That's just
Okay. A buck is at 150 yards on a windy day. You can see him. Maybe he knows your position. Maybe, let's say for this scenario, he doesn't know that you're there. But you can see him. He's 150 away. It's windy. That's a big detail there. A grunt will not reach him.
right.
Would you rather rattle or snort wheeze?
What
at
time
that
of year
buck?
is it? I mean, that's very big. That's a big deal.
Let's go November 5th.
I would rather rattle.
Why?
I don't think a snort wheeze would maybe get to him, but you wouldn't get all of that detail and that aggression out. Really that, where you really pull it out of the bottom of you. He might hear it, and that could work too, because maybe he only catches a little bit of it. But I feel like that clank would resonate better, give him more meat to chew on, if you will, and bring him in.
Okay. Fair enough. What if I tell you have a decoy? Does that alter your answer? Then
Yeah,
you're definitely
absolutely.
rattling?
No, I think if I have a decoy, I'm gonna snort wheeze over rattle.
Because there's
Sight
not
calling?
another one.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
Paint the picture, man. You've got the decoy. When we set them out, we always pin their ears back.
Yeah.
That DSD that we use, he's already got his posture set up. I mean, he's looking the part. I don't care if I got to snort wheeze at him 2 or 3 times to get him to turn his head, but once he hears that sound and associates it with another buck,
Then
bingo.
we're in the chips.
then it's on him. So
Okay. That kind of brings us to the rest of that. To wrap it up, guys, we've got a bunch of discount codes that you guys could use in the Inner Circle if that's something you're interested in doing. So the Inner Circle, the Last Breath Inner Circle, that's our Facebook group that we have. We've got a 25% off code on all Badlands gear, 20% off and free shipping with code BLUE, 35% off of Outdoor Edge, and a couple more big ones coming down the pipe here real soon. Big news is that our new season, we have a new episode dropping every single Saturday on our YouTube channel. Every Thursday in 2020, we're releasing a Throwback Thursday episode. So for all of you guys that are new to the podcast, new to our YouTube channel, new to our brand in general, that's the reason why we're doing that. We're trying to give you guys a crack at seeing some of our old stuff from the past that we think is pretty cool. So we're trying to share it with you on Thursdays. Every Wednesday, we're going live. So in 2 days from now, you guys will be able to see some clips from the elk hunt. I've been thinking about this for a while because I don't want to give away like the proverbial egg at the during the Easter egg hunt, but we're going to possibly show you guys a kill shot, possibly not. It just kind of depends. It's going to be circumstantial. So stay in waiting. You guys are just going to have to check out on Wednesday. But obviously the polished episodes to all of these will be ready to roll at our launch party next July. So all of the really nice high quality edit stuff, that'll be at our launch party next July. But the rough cut stuff that it's like fast, like in real time in the field, that'll be the stuff on Wednesdays. So
the only thing that I want to add to that is like the next 10 days, I feel like are the most 10 deadly days in October for scrape hunting. We've done podcasts. We've made YouTube videos, how to put them out. It's our favorite practice. And the cold front, similar to the one that's hitting us on Thursday, Wednesday night, Thursday, are the ones that you need to key on. These are where your mock scrapes become extremely, extremely valuable.
Yep.
And it's not too late to start one either. Like right now is a good time to get one going, especially if you know of a big deer in that area. It allows you to put in one of those challenge scrapes that we talk about, those territorial scrapes that we talk about, and become very successful. So, looking at the years past where we have killed bucks, targeted bucks over scrapes, it's the next 10 days.
Yep.
I'm telling you guys, there's
between the 10th, 12th, and like the 22nd, 23rd.
Yes, it's
before they
great.
dump the scrapes.
You just gotta ride those cold fronts. That deer is hit on daylight, then he's probably gonna do it during a cold front. If he hasn't yet and he's going to that scrape all the time, all you need is a little bit of cold love to get that summer gun in the scrape. Just watch your cameras. I'm telling you, the next 10 days in Illinois, there'll be deer killed that are working scrapes or going to a scrape. It's going to happen. Just got to be there.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with actually somebody last night. They messaged me on Facebook and they're like, "Hey, how do I set up a scrape? I've got a deer that I want to kill.
Yeah.
It's a big freaking deer. He's coming to this scrape relatively often, like every 3 or 4 days, but how do I amplify that for this cold front?" And I told him exactly what we just talked about, like throw in a challenge, put the same scent in the original scrape, take some rack rub, put it on the challenge scrape, and get him checking it like clockwork. And pretty soon a buck, when that... bucks are like crack addicts in rehab. These last like 15 days in October, they're itching. They're ready to explode. That's what in my mind, like I've heard Chase Burns talk about it before, like a rub is like a pent up sexual aggression. Like a buck is walking through and he sees a little tree and he's frustrated and he's like, I'm going to go through and take this tree out.
Yep.
So all those things are kind of pointing towards the same thing. And that's, the rut. It's going to be, November is going to be here in 17 days, which is crazy to say because we've only went hunting twice just because you've been gone, but we're going to start pounding.
Stacking the days in.
Here quick.
Yep.
So we hope that you guys are out there doing the same. If you have any luck, then make sure you hit us up in the Last Breath Inner Circle. We've already had about 10 or 15 of our buddies kill bucks that have posted them in there.
Yep.
So
Cody Clark was one just the other day.
Yeah,
beautiful deer.
So we've seen a lot of people get really successful and post those in there. Our final last thing, our series that we've been developing for the course of the last decade plus. It's the Moultrie Image Autopsy, and that's on our YouTube channel every Sunday. We dive into a trail camera study of a buck. Many of these bucks we pattern over scrapes. Many of them we have on trail cameras because we're a non-bait state in Illinois over a scrape, and that's a big deal to us to pattern our deer. So that's every Sunday. So thank you again for listening to the Last Breath Huntcast.
I've got one other thing to add too.
Yeah.
And that is, man, just stay humble and hunt your ass off and be smart, because our friends over at the Whitetail Legacy podcast, it happened to Grant and I 9 or 10 years ago, but right in the middle of deer season, lost our property to hunt. And those poor guys, their lease owner just dropped a bomb on them, man. And I feel bad for those guys. And you know what? Those two dudes took it with the most grace I've ever seen. They're like, it fucking sucks, but we're still going to get it done. They go, we're hunting all public now.
Yep.
Not by choice either. I mean, they had a lease, paid money for the lease, and the guy then turned back and reneged on it, and they were like, no, this is not what we agreed upon. It's either going to be that or we're done, and you're going to refund us. And the guy refunded them. I mean, man, talk about just getting the rug pulled out from under you. The thing is there's sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. It never feels like it, but for us, an example, when we lost all of our hunting ground, I mean, like that. And now it put us into places where we can hunt some of the farms we have now, which are better than the places we used to have, maybe, arguably. It's not just as good. So whatever happens this season, just take it with grace, learn, grow from it, and there's better things to come. But, man, if you reach out to those Whitetail Legacy boys and give them a pat on the back, those guys are some tough dudes, and they take everything with great stride.
Yeah, and it's going to be all the better when they go and smack a giant on public this year, which
I hope they get an opportunity to. They put in the work, man. Those guys are good hunters.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you again for tuning into the Last Breath Huntcast. We hope you enjoyed this one. Like I said, new episodes every Monday. Be part of the Last Breath Inner Circle on Facebook, and happy hunting out there. The next time we talk to you guys, we just might have a buck down, so hopefully the same is true for you. Don't waste it.